to be your time, and I want this time to be your time, and give a little bit of information or the journey that I have gone through when I'm publishing my first book. And I hope you don't get into the same challenges that I faced. This is a question that I was being asked a lot since I published my book, so I thought this is going to be useful for any women entrepreneurs who are either thinking of writing their first book or thinking of writing any book really in the future. Thanks for sharing that some of you already are on the journey of writing your first book, which is wonderful. And so let's get started actually at a very high level of, like, I introduced myself quickly before this. You must be wondering, who's this woman, Furkan? Why is she talking about this? Actually, years ago, I started working as a software engineer, and I worked in the field for 10 big years. And then I made a huge transition in my career. The reason why was, the number of women in tech is very little. And when it comes to women in the leadership, it was even more minority. And when it comes to women with different ethnic backgrounds in the leadership positions of big tech companies, didn't even exist at all. So this was a big wake-up call for me, and I had to do something about it, not just sit down and complain about it. So 7 years ago, I founded my company Diversin with the vision to bring action orientation to diverse and inclusion initiatives. So 3 years ago, I published my book, and I tell you a little bit of that journey, and hopefully you will get some understanding how this actually came out. So the first step, is the idea stage, and then you write your book, your manuscript, and then publishing and launching. At first, when we think of publishing a book, writing our first book, we only think that writing is the only part, but actually the ideation and publishing, the launch, is actually as big as the writing time as well. And why you would like to write your own book, and I would like to say it definitely gives you a large credibility. Imagine a coach, imagine a consultant that has written and put a lot of work and inside their time into a work in terms of a book comparing to another one. So it definitely builds some authority and credibility onto your services, and it reaches out to so many part of the world. Your influence and outreach is getting bigger and bigger, and you can increase your services charge as well, because you become an author of that topic. You can also think of it as a passive income, and it attracts talents even when you are sleeping. And at the end of the day, it's a lifetime goal for so many people, and it was for me as well. But I'd like to say, when we talk about Furkan, why did you end up writing about inclusive intelligence? This is the question that I had. Yes, growing up, I always thought that I could write something at some stage in my life. I don't know if it's fiction or non-fiction. But the thing is, the first book, I believe, is so important, and it gives a bit of your personality out there as well. There are so many inequalities in the world. There are so many things that are happening, but why one thing stood up within me that became an idea, and I wanted to put it out there no matter what. So this is the frustration that we all have within life. So what is that one big thing that you're so frustrated in the world that you would like to change? And I think this is worth to share. Sometimes I'm also hearing, Furkan, I'd like to write something, but I don't know what. Then maybe it's not the time to thinking of publishing it. Maybe keep writing and also collecting, like a puzzle, really. You start writing, the ideas get together, and then you write about something else, and then it brings into a shape, really. And if you read the other books on that topic, if the idea is not original to me, it isn't really worth writing it, to be honest, if the majority of the ideas are shared. So I would highly recommend reading whatever is out there. So which was one of the things that I could say, okay, they haven't covered this. They actually missed this point. So my idea is going to be an original idea. And on the other side, you can also ask like why this book or this title comes from me. So what makes me the authority, the right person to write about it, is another question. So the ideation phase, I think, the title, the how you take out the idea is super important. When it comes to the writing, I know some of you are already writing, and you know how challenging it is, right? It's not an easy journey. And I tell you about like how these things came out. We have delivered an inclusive leadership program for companies, multiple companies, and their leadership teams. They are located in different parts of the world. They have different ethnic backgrounds and they have different roles. And our question in our research was, what makes a leader inclusive leader? As a result of this program, we find out that there are 6 skills in common in those leaders that makes them inclusive leaders. So as soon as these stories shaped and we listened to leaders, we had so many stories on inclusion that are being practiced so differently by different people in other part of the world. So, as soon as these 6 pillars were there, my book structure was there. And I was traveling from Dublin to Dallas, and I had a very long flight, over like 10 hours flight. And I said, Furkan, this is the time for you to sit down, and like you have to sit down anyway. So this is the time for you that you have to start structuring your book. So in that long period of time on the flight, I started writing. On the other side, I'm a good reader as well. When I had ordered books from Amazon, I was comparing the books, which one I should start reading first. And I eventually had a like 30 item list of like what makes a good book from my perspective. And I was always referring to that, like what makes a good book that I can actually implement it within my book as well. When you think of handwriting and laptop, this is one of the things I would like to highly recommend. If you're someone like me who keeps editing on laptop, then grab a pen and paper and start writing it on there. It's easier. And what you want to do, you only want to write, pour the ideas that you have into a shape of a solid shape of pen and paper or laptop, if that works for you, and leave the editing to the end, because the first thing is you want the idea to be written out there. With laptop, it didn't go with me, and especially if English is not your first language, and if you're writing it in English, then you keep editing, you keep thinking more. It brings more complication, and writing on paper has been much easier for me. And imagine you can make the scene, you can bring your like comfort drink with you, or you can go to a coffee shop, have your pen and paper favorite ones, and you can write it. So it's just so enjoyable. And today is a lovely weather, isn't it? It's raining. It's nice to grab your pen and paper. It's just all you need to do, and keep writing your ideas. Doesn't matter if they count later on or not. And people ask, first of all, once I arrived to Dallas, I was feeling jet lag and waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning until the breakfast was served at 7:30. I was writing in that time very early in the morning. My mind was fresh, and I was waking up myself without the alarm anyway. So it's good for you to find out that patterns that works for you. If you're a late worker, that's fine. If you're an early riser, that's fine. Find your own pattern that works. But I wouldn't say, wait for the inspiration. Just make that time for you. Bring your pen and then you write it down, but dedicate that time. Just don't wait the inspiration to come to you. Once you're in that sweet spot, the ideas just flow. And sometimes you say, just write whatever that comes to your mind. Then, it shaped my mind to get into a stage of inspiration. So many people ask, how long did it take for you? It took me 3 months to write it. 80% of it was complete within 3 months, but it differs from one person to another. Or people get help or find a co-writer, which is absolutely brilliant. And if you are on the same page, if you align with the message, with those people that you complement each other, why not? And did you know that so many writers actually have ghost writers? They put out the idea there, people shape the form, they polish the words and everything. So this is what some people do. When it comes to publishing, oh my God, that was my nightmare, because it took me 18 months to find a publisher. And I finished writing just before the pandemic, March 2020. Then the pandemic hit. Publishing wasn't the most priority in the world, and I couldn't find any answers to my publishing, my questions to publish my book. And I was comparing the traditional method and the self-publishing methods. And so there is always pros and cons. And I'd like to introduce you what are the traditional and self-publishing pros and cons here. The traditional one, it's a greater outreach. For example, your book is next to Ariana Huffington's book, Brené Brown's book. So the traditional publishers get your book to the outreach out there. And as soon as you start with them, the process is very clear. They reverse your publishing date, and then they give you dates, what date you're going to do what. So it's another team working for you to put your book out there. So you don't need to learn anything, which saves time. But on the other side, it's expensive. And they have different offers. For example, if you want to do a launch event with them as well, they arrange the promotion and everything as well, which I didn't go through. But eventually it's expensive. It's a longer process. Why? Because you do it with the team, one-on-one. You're like a ping pong. They say, is this okay? Is this okay? You constantly keep editing, and they constantly get your approval from their changes. And it's so hard to get accepted. So the first thing I've done, I went through my bookshelves, and I found my favorite books publishers. Okay, these are 2 names coming up. So I contacted them, nothing I heard, and recontacted, no, nothing happened. So I said, I'm not going to wait until these people come back to me. I have to do something about it. And on the other side, one of the biggest cons are low royalties. For example, my books, this is pretty much the same for traditional publishing. 70% of the physical book royalties are going to the publisher. And from the ebooks, 70% of them that you get it, they get only 20%. So which is so low royalties. On the other side, the self-publishing, anyone can get published. It's much cheaper, almost like nothing, shorter process. But I think if you have someone who has done this before, makes it much, much easier for you. And you can decide on the price of your book, and you can decide on the royalties, and it's much higher. And there's also a few websites that gives you the calculation of the royalties as well. For example, you put there 20 euros, and then for each, for example, Amazon page, amazoncouk.com, and etc. So it gives you a breakdown of what royalties you would get out of 20. Then you change it to 30, then you will see it, so which is very clear. But if it is your first book, it's so many unknowns there. It's a smaller outreach unless you already have an audience. If you have an audience, if you're an influencer like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, then you do your own self-promotion. That also helps to spread, reach to your audience. But it's all down to you. And if your following or audience is not large, then it stays a bit like small within that group. And guess what? Let me share my experience. How did I find my publisher eventually? Okay. So I read this book, Her Way to the Top by Hira Ali, and I really liked the book. I said like, oh my God, this is a wonderful book. And I contacted her on LinkedIn and I said, by the way, I really liked your book. Would your publisher be a good publisher for me? Because I've written a book, I can't find a publisher. She said, oh, would you like to have a chat about it? And I was like, oh my God, bad news is coming. But actually, she told me about the pros and cons, and it actually worked out so well for me because I wanted my first book to be out from a traditional publisher, if possible, and then I could publish my book with a self after I built a bit like larger audience later on with the self-publishing. This was my way of thinking. So as soon as she introduced me to her publisher, we started working. But I must tell you a little bit of this heads up, okay? So we started, and I said, okay, I'd like to work with you, blah, blah. They sent you a form. In this form, you have to even have a clarity in your mind. What is the size of the book that you are thinking? The color, if you have any preferences on the cover. What is the thing you're going to write into the back page, back cover? So it has to be like from the first day. And they keep asking, is this your final draft? They're not going to wait for you. Is it a British or American English that you're going to use it in your book? And so many things that you haven't even considered are being asked from the first moment. And I think what was difficult for me was, yes, I had my first draft ready, but I didn't have the reviews of my book. You know, the first few pages, few people talks like highly or testimonials of your book in the first pages of the book. So I hadn't shared it with people before to get those feedbacks. So they said, no, even the reviews has to be in it. I was like, okay, give me some time because people are going to read it. I don't know in how long. So thank God they read it in a good time. So within a week or so, I had to give everything to them from the first moment. And from that first day, they ask you also, what would you like your publishing date? So then they reverse work towards it. And as soon as I made the agreement with them, they send you an Excel sheet. This day, we are going to double check this. We are going to edit. We are going to send you a cover cover page options. We are going to do this, do this. So you have to get back to us within 24 hours. Otherwise, it's all delaying the dates. So I really like that clarity. Working with them was a pleasure. The company that I worked with, it's a business book category. It's been bought by another company later on. But the person who helped me called Mindy, book midwife, she calls herself, and she's also a book coach right now. And she's starting, I think this March, she's starting like write your own book within 90 days, kind of like book coaching sessions. If anybody is interested, I can highly recommend her or make you an introduction on LinkedIn. And the day comes and your book is in your hands finally. Can you imagine? I was going to go to meet with a friend for a coffee, okay? So the books arrived maybe 30 minutes before, and I was like, oh my God, this is my book. I can't believe it's in my hands already. So I took a few pictures and sent to my parents and family. And then this one, I quickly shared this. I said, you know what, it's Friday. I don't want to wait for like next week. I just quickly shared this before I go with meet with my friend. And I don't even remember what I have written, but I just wanted to share this on LinkedIn. So I shared it and I went to have a coffee with my friend. And after I come home, oh my God, I received so many, so many likes, over 2,000 likes, shares, reposts, and comments. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even have a makeup on here, or don't even think what I was writing really. So people are happy to see that, you have accomplished something. And I think the more you share this journey, they love it. They love the journey. So Sripi, Ifa, and I'd like to see those photos. Please make sure that you tag me on those photos on LinkedIn, okay? I can't wait to hear or see your photos as well. And the book launch date comes in. So I dedicated my launch event, set it up for another date than my publication date. So I got an opportunity to celebrate it the way that I wanted. And it was in a very beautiful place, Mali Museum of Literature, with a lovely harp playing at the background, so many balloons. And I was signing my book in one side, and also the cake with my cover page on it. It was so delicious. I would highly recommend these things. It's just like cherish the moment that you have spent so much time putting this book come out. It is not an easy journey, but think of it like it's your time to celebrate it as well. Not only the book, but it is you. And now you're an author. Congratulations. And maybe why not you build a profile around your authorship? For example, writing author of the book, this on your signature, and putting it on your LinkedIn profile. And also, I'm sure you have your website page, but your name and surname.com as an author's page is also super important, that you can build your own profile. And don't stop there. I traveled around the world and 14 countries, over 25 cities, introducing the book as part of my book tour, and mostly in Europe, then in the US, and it continues. And I absolutely love meeting people in different parts of the world. What do they think about my book? This is completely outside of my publisher's work. This is completely me who organized it, and with meetups, with conferences, where is it going to happen, the registrations and everything. I handled it all by myself, and it is an absolutely a must, I believe, if you are bringing any book to life. And each time I go to a city, I hold my book in my hand and I do a selfie. My book and I are in Barcelona. My book and I are in Turkey. My book and I are in Dubai. People love you to see the story of the book is traveling everywhere. And it is like fantastic. And another thing I'd like to say, these things will happen to you too soon, hopefully. I was in a conference in Switzerland and I introduced myself to somebody in a networking meeting. Hello, my name is Furkan. And then he said, one second, and he opened up his bag and he put out my book from his bag and he said, "Can I get an autograph, please?" And I was like, wow, he already read my book. He already knew about me and I had no idea. Similar things happened in Vienna, in Switzerland, in different part of the world, and you just can't believe that this is happening. So your book is, even when you're sleeping, it continues spreading your message. This will hopefully happen to you as well. And when you're sleeping, your book doesn't sleep. I wake up to messages from different part of the world, and people are saying, you know what? I read your book. They hold your book in their hands and making a selfie, having a picture in different part of the world, writing the testimonials or writing what they really liked about the book within. So this is not something that you could push people to do it, but I think it comes from the heart, and the people that you haven't even ever met before even doesn't even know that country or their city existed before, that they send these lovely messages to you coming from their heart, means the world to me. Thank you so much, Miran. She's bringing my book to all over the world when she's traveling. Last time she was in Portugal. This picture of her. Another picture is this one from Antonio when he was traveling from Barcelona to Madrid on the train. And my book was recommended in the University of Cambridge and also was part of the MBA program in their workshops in Denmark, in London, Vienna, Budapest. And this is so close to my heart, the one on the left. Somebody read my book and really loved it. And you see the picture on the left with a brunch table with my book on it, which is from Peru. Can you believe? I'm still shaking when I remember that moment, woke up in the morning and these lovely messages from all over the world. And this is going to happen to you. That means that your words is so powerful and can travel everywhere, even when you're not traveling. And then people get your message so authentically. And finally, I'd like to say, Gaurav Mahagat, thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I didn't keep it too long, and happy to answer your questions. Before that, if you could go to the QR code, which is bringing you to my LinkedIn page, if you could connect with me and drop a line and how did you find this talk? And I'm gonna make a draw today, and I'm gonna give away one of my books to you, and I'll sign it and post it to you. And thank you so much